Pledge allegiance to the
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. But now it's going to be legislation.
I gotta watch it. I'm in the bars.
Guess the first order of business is to approve our minutes of February 27th.
Make a motion to approve?
Is there a second? Second. Then all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Guess we could just review our goals again. I guess the first one was educating residents about fire safety. Is there any update or any more information on that?
The only thing I'll add now is, if you guys want, we can do what we did before with the fall and winter. I'll come up with this, one for the spring, and especially for the summer, if you guys are interested.
Willing.
And we'll keep doing that.
Talk to the Fire Safety Committee chairman.
That's him.
I wear many hats.
And much like we ever do their stuff, I could just keep giving you guys stuff too,
Yeah.
to keep sharing.
That would
If you guys want.
Yeah,
We'll just
absolutely.
make that a regular thing, even after this committee's done, we'll keep that going.
Okay, that would be good.
Okay. The second one was form a special needs registry. Is there any update on any of that?
Like I said, I already have a spreadsheet that's been started a while ago. One update I brought up before was about the county and their system. I have spoken to the county about we use Code Red and they use, I think it's Ready Monco. They got rid of their special needs registry, as we talked before. However, the Ready Monco does have questions for residents who want to sign up for that stuff. Not everything like the needs registry did, but they do have some questions of, do you have any special needs? Do you have any this? And a couple questions at the bottom. So they're going to provide me with what they can. As I was told, he's like, the only thing you might be aware of is that most people don't fill that stuff out because that really is more of a, much like our Code Red thing, it's more of just an alert system. So some of the stuff was just auto-populated, and anybody who does go in there to sign stuff up, they're usually just putting in their contact information and not filling the rest out. But I said, well, give me what you got. So I'm working with them on that.
Good. And then we talked before about floor captains, whether or not that works or doesn't work.
Yeah, it's
Doesn't work.
not something that we can make work with us. It's more the education. I think the education of our residents would more fit in than with just having floor captains run up and down the hallways. And I think the floor captains just wouldn't work out.
We use floor captains for delivering things.
Delivering messages.
But,
and,
delivering bad news if there's a fire probably
Yeah.
wouldn't work out.
And I think, as you said, Steve, like a lot of people change over, and floor captains would also be hard in your building.
We don't recommend it. I think I said before, I want everybody out of the building. I want the first responders to do everything. When you have people going to look for people, it never ends good, and they have to get out.
They should just go.
That's our instruction to everybody. We just want everybody out. If there's anything that's required over and above that with special requirements, we would contact the fire department or any first responder.
They ever have a thing like where if there was a fire, you gather outside, gather by floor or gather by just gather. Gather by floor, you could
That'd
say.
probably be a good way.
Then
of
you
it.
could say, well, I know the people from this apartment are in Florida, for the month, or they're away, but somebody to try to know, who's missing from their floor, and maybe, they could just be at the grocery store, or they could be away.
Whenever the fire marshal
looking.
directs us, or the chief directs us, depending on, fire has no address or location, it can happen anywhere. All of our residents usually will gather in one spot. When we gather them,
Okay.
we have a rent roll ready.
Okay.
It's in the cloud, it's always available no matter what happens. and then we'll gather them, and then we go
Check
through.
them off, yeah.
And we check them off, and we see whatever we can do. Whatever the fire marshal or chief tells us to do, we do.
Okay. So
Don't wait for us
red-
either. If you guys have ideas, I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Come up with your own plan of, once everybody gets out, how do your folks account for each other? You don't necessarily have to have floor captains, but I think that's a wonderful idea of accountability. It doesn't have to be like schools do, but some way of everybody gathering outside. Because what we're not going to do with the fire department is we're not going to go and start who all's here, who's not. We don't know who is who, although your residents will know who each other is. So I think that would be a great way of doing it. Because that's, if somebody knows somebody's inside, that's what we're going to know. Ultimately, when we get there,
By
is
that
who's there,
time-
who's not.
Yeah, by that time, first responders have the building cleared. By any time we would get people together in a group, they've already been through most of the building,
And-
and in a lot of cases that we've experienced. So
It takes
Not
time.
to say we wouldn't do it. I'm just saying the quicker thing is to get people out, let them do their job, and I can't give a location outside to gather. You can't do that. It's impossible.
We have hospitals do it. We have big
You-
corporations do it.
If I have a
I think what we
fire
can
on
do
the
is,
west
maybe we can
wing-
talk, I think let's not abandon the idea.
Yeah.
Let's just talk after the,
Offline, yeah.
offline and see what maybe ideas we can come up with to try it.
Are they
I don't want to
coming
ban the
front of
idea. I think it's a
building
good thing to
versus the
start
back
with.
of the building, or
You
wherever the
cannot say
exit
that.
doors are?
Every fire marshal I've ever worked with tells me not to do that. He will make an announcement when we have a safe area to gather a bunch of people. But if I have a west side or an east side of an exposure where they have to get ladders
Oh,
up, and
I
I
see.
told everyone, get
Meet-
together in the
meet
front
in
of the
the-
building.
Yeah.
And
Every
that-
fire
maybe where the
marshal,
fire
any
is.
mount told you that?
No.
Excuse me?
I don't think any mount told you that.
No, I get the
He's
point.
talking about
If-
the fire chiefs, like from Harmonville, Plymouth, Norristown.
Or anywhere,
I'm-
any
I'm-
apartment complex. No, it makes sense. Don't always say meet out front. The fire might be right out front.
That's what
Right.
I'm saying.
That's the
Yes.
point.
You
That's the
cannot
point,
give a
yeah.
location.
Yeah.
You just have to
Yeah.
say,
Get
in
away
our
from- outside the
SSOP,
building,
we
but away from the
gather
building,
when it's
away from the
safe
fire,
under the
yeah.
direction of the fire marshal.
Yeah, so like I said, let's talk and maybe we come up with ideas. Because anywhere you gather is going to be away from the building. It's going to be out of the
Far
danger zone
away,
anyhow.
yeah.
Nowhere would you ever gather in the lobby or out,
Yeah.
right, immediately right outside. We always tell everybody get away from the building. But I think that would be a good thing if we could talk with both facilities at some point and come up with ideas and just bounce things around of how we can, how that could be a possibility. Not saying it's definitely going to work, but I think it's something to explore and not just say no to right away. At least
Maybe
let's talk about it.
Ask the fire chiefs what they think about it, because they're the ones who respond to those buildings all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe,
Yeah, maybe we can get a
John
meeting together with
Hoffman or
them and then.
somebody. I mean, Harmonville's right down the road, so
Mhm.
they may have some ideas of what would allow them to move quickly with their equipment and their guys coming in.
Yeah, because we're going to ultimately be looking for everybody to move out and away from the building.
Yeah. 'Cause if it's
And we
re-
can
if
look at
it's
these
re- if it's
facilities and say,
remote enough,
here's
you
good
can always
spots.
say,
Yeah. Here's good spots to be, here's not good spots to
Far
be.
into the parking lot or something.
Obviously, right in the front of the building, not a good spot. Near the hydrants, not a good spot.
Yeah, near driveways.
But the
no.
further out from the parking lots are usually good spots. Because whether you have them as a gathering point or not, that's ultimately where we're going to want all the residents to go anyhow, is out and away.
Yeah, as far
Whether it's
as-
for accountability purpose, for you trying to figure out who's who, or not, we're still going to want them to move out and away from the building. That's, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. All right. And we were talking last time about the furniture, so we don't.
I think
there's-
that's a
Yeah,
done issue,
furniture.
right?
That's a done
I think that's a
deal.
done
Yeah.
That
issue.
Cross
is
that
a
off.
done deal.
Crossing off the floor cabinets too. Any additional ideas for safety, and then we're going to go over these other alternatives. But does anybody have any other ideas for safety?
Again, it goes back to more of the education, but again, I offer to both facilities, if you ever want us to come in, meet with people, we're willing to do that. Offer's still out there.
Okay, great.
Okay, so you want to go on about the life safety? Do you have your, I don't know if you have your books here. Sorry, so
I can
Mike was
go,
in
I can
training
go, I can go
today.
get them.
Mike was in training today, so he didn't see that email that you sent like midday about the alternatives. But remember, there's alternatives to.
Oh, there's all kinds of alternatives
Yeah,
to.
so I think that we wanted to maybe explore some of them a little bit or touch on them.
Okay.
Bring 'em. Do you need to go get the book?
I would. I mean, the book was,
Yeah.
yeah, I can
You
go
brought
get
a
the
lot of
book.
papers to the book, not the book.
Yeah, I can go get the book.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think the way we ended last time was it's more informative to say, hey, codes are changing. It goes
Yes.
back to the question I think you raised or somebody raised before. Where are things going for the future? We see where things are going for the future.
Right.
And
But
we
there are-
see what's happened.
Right, and there are alternatives too. In the code.
Alternatives to sprinklers?
Yes, to retrofitting. In
To
the-
retrofitting sprinklers, yes. There's options, alternatives, different ways you can do it.
Yes, that's what I think we wanted to
Not
talk
just
about.
going through what was suggested. There's alternatives and different ways of doing it. We've been saying
Does
that
the-
all along.
Yeah, does the book describe those ways?
No.
Oh, what do you need, a fire protection engineer to?
You need an
to
engineer, you need an
suggest-
engineer or a
Alternatives.
design professional.
Design professional, usually a fire protection engineer would be your best.
Yeah.
Because that's their specialty.
And what do? They draft a plan and then,
They look at the building,
Let me go get the.
and see how the building is, and come up with a plan of possible how to sprinkler it, or do it in phases, or whatever. If we do, like, maybe the common areas to begin with, and then go from there.
So is it the township's position right now that we are retrofitting sprinklers in our buildings?
I thought you had to come up with a plan and but it didn't have to include sprinklers.
No.
A fire engineer has to sign off. I don't know. We asked our solicitor.
Okay, so
I
the
think-
solicitor,
I
here's
think
what,
a lawyer
here's the
needs to read
solicitor's
the-
email. That's what's reading. So the solicitor says, he says, regarding the 2021 Life Safety Code, while section 31.3.5.9.1 does require all high-rise buildings to be protected throughout by an approved supervised automatic sprinkler system by January 1st, 2033, there are 2 alternatives provided in the code as well. I think they were the alternatives we want to talk about.
Yes,
The alternatives to
Okay.
the
Requires
sprinklers.
sprinklers, but there are alternatives.
And he says,
to
what, he
sprinklers.
says, he is still, well, we are still reviewing these alternatives. One may apply, which would be under sections, again, 31.3.593 and 31.3.594, and would require the buildings to have a professional engineer experienced in fire and life safety design to design a life safety system that could include some or all of the following: partial automatic sprinkler protection, smoke detection systems, smoke control systems, and/or compartmentation. This alternative would need to be approved by the township. In other words, if the high-rises have a professional fire safety engineer design a life safety system and the township approves it, they do not need to install sprinklers. I would
you read that
guess,
again?
suspect
Yeah.
even that many of those alternatives are already installed in the building. I would suspect further that these types of life safety systems are significantly less expensive than sprinklers. He says here, design a life safety system that could include some or all of the following: partial automatic sprinkler protection, smoke detection systems, smoke control systems, and/or compartmentation.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, was that possible?
I guess this is right out of the book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can I get that one too?
Yeah, yes, I'll get it for you, but it's sections 31.3.5.9.3 and 9.4. But yes. you can certainly
Yes,
circulate that.
but here's the thing to keep in mind. With the 0.5.9.3, an automatic sprinkler system should not be required in buildings that have previously approved and implemented engineered life safety systems. That nothing's been
Previously approved.
previously approved, nothing's been even applied for.
Previous to 2033, I thought.
No, prior to the code being enacted.
Well,
I
I
think
think
I
that,
So-
would
the-
ask the
I
solicitor
think this,
that.
yeah, the
Question
solicitor's
again.
suggesting that they
'Cause
don't.
Okay.
that-
Because that's the way codes go,
They
is
don't
that
have to be
anything
certified.
previously
I've read it,
approved.
And I've had attorneys read it, and it goes both ways. It's really comes down to what the position of the township's gonna be. That's what we need detail. We have a lot of people that are on edge right now that we're all waiting to see exactly what those requirements are gonna be. And if the township is telling us today that we have to sprinkler our buildings,
I don't
We just
think
need
we're
to
talking-
know. We
yeah,
just need to know where you guys stand.
I don't think, based on this latest guidance from the solicitor, I don't think that's what you're being told.
Yeah.
But we already meet those requirements, and is the township okay with that?
I don't know
Okay,
anything about any of
Do
that
we need to
stuff.
have the professional engineer prepare the life safety plan and then have that reviewed?
Well, is
Yeah,
it,
I don't-
is
Mike
the
and see.
property owner that gets the life safety engineer to devise their plan, and then it comes to council for approval?
It seems to me that way, Karen, from what Mike is saying. Now, whether that should have been done before the building was even built, or whether that's waivable, I don't know, that was a long time ago. But he is saying that those two sections would require the buildings to have a professional engineer experienced in fire and life safety, design a life safety system, that it could include some or all of those following things. So, I mean, maybe that's,
You'd have to have them review that, because
Yeah.
because the section right above that's the engineer life safety system, absolutely. That's what's in the code. But right above that is where they're saying it should have, prior
Done
to
before.
this being adopted, it was supposed to have been either done. Basically, what they're trying to tell you is, if it's not even done yet, but at least you already put in for it, it's in the process somewhere, you could still go into that. Because what they didn't want to do was just say, okay, we approved it, it's now enacted, and now if you're not done, oh well, you can't do it anymore. They want to say, if you've already started it, if you're already in progress, keep going. You're allowed to keep going. You know, you get the 10-year thing, you get whatever else. They want to let you keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, the one right before that says, if you haven't started at all yet, then you can't do that anymore. But
I'd
I
like
think,
to ask Mike to.
Yes.
Not you,
Yeah.
Mike.
No, the other
I would
Mike, yeah.
like Mike
The
the
solicitor.
lawyer, our solicitor, to clarify that.
to
for
see
us.
if you
Yeah,
can
to-
still
to-
come back now
to-
with
to be
the,
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
you mentioned if it was done or something was done, were we ever notified that something like that had to be done from the township? At
Yes.
any point? Can you
Yes.
tell me when? Can you give me
when
a
that letter was
copy?
sent out 2 years ago now,
you know, the one that,
the one that started all the meetings and was a predecessor to this committee.
I believe that letter was to hire an engineer to design a sprinkler system.
Right.
That was notifying you of the code.
Which was thought to design a system.
Right, that's what I recall.
You're right.
Let's see. I'd have to see if I have
But
that.
was there
I don't know how to
something
have that here.
beforehand, before that letter, that said anything about the life safety plan that would not have required sprinklers, or the alternative, that we would be required to do to meet that? Did we ever get any kind of information from?
If you
the
hired
township?
a professional, they would have known
That's
the
what I'm
codes.
asking you.
Yeah.
So,
I'm asking you, did we ever get any kind of correspondence from Plymouth Township that required us to do that before that letter that said you're going to be required to do sprinklers?
In other
What,
words,
for
to
the
hire
option of the-
Fire and life safety engineer to come up with a plan. So I really think our solicitor has to.
Yeah.
I think he
has
should,
the
and I
final
think the
word.
point is, that for these guys too, these codes change constantly.
I understand.
And, you know, when they change, they come to us, they come to council, they tell us these are changes. I mean, they don't make them up. They're just trying to enforce what books are saying. The books are changing constantly. So-
yeah, and to try and answer your
that's-
question,
That's the problem, you know.
I don't have
It's
a copy
like
of that.
moving target, you know?
yeah, I don't have a copy of the letter here because to me, my
No,
my
I
for the
didn't expect
committee,
you
not
to
for
pull
the
it out of
fire
your
stuff.
pocket.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
But
because all that stuff
We'd like
before I
to
don't
know
have
who
with
you
me.
sent it to.
This falls for the committee.
Plymouth
Um,
Condo.
Yeah,
But did we mention specifically an engineer life safety system in there?
I don't know.
No, I'll tell you right now. Since we drafted a letter, it wasn't mentioned in there because there are options. So
Okay.
we're simply saying, hey, listen, according to the IFC at the time, with the appendix at that time, this is what the requirements were.
Talked about
You'd have to start getting
retrofitting
into
12
stuff.
years.
Yes. And so as far as alternatives and options,
They exist.
we didn't go through all the stuff in the book because typically that's what you would do is when you hired that engineer or the design professional, something like that. That's something for them to know, look over and say, here's the different ways you can do things. And ideally, they should have found that or knew about that and said, you don't have to do all this stuff. You can do one of these things.
Well, we talked to an engineer,
Okay.
and he just doesn't know, we don't have enough information to be able to, for him to say, okay, I know what to do and I get that. We're looking to get more information, just like the alternatives. So, I mean, we understand that we would have to hire an engineer to do that. But, you know, he even brought up something that we should have been notified at some point before the sprinklers, that there was an alternative that we could have done. And to our knowledge, to my knowledge, from what our people have told us, they never remember, and they keep files on that, ever seeing anything before that letter that said we were required to put in sprinklers.
That letter was the first one that, since I started, and probably since you started, that have come up because of the change in the IFC.
Okay, well,
So it was prior code. So yeah,
Okay.
there probably was not a letter because, again, as codes are changing, these things are coming up.
We usually don't find out all the changes until we get the book
Yeah.
and go through it. You know, looking at the changes.
Are these
So-
every
so
3 years,
Karen,
these books?
Every
We really need to know what the stance is of
Yeah.
the township. So whatever we need to do, we'll go research. But we need to know where the township sits on this and what are we going to be required to do. None of us can read those codes and understand them and decipher them any way, shape, or form. We just need to know what's the stance of the township so we can figure this out.
And that was-
I thought this safety committee was in lieu of having the retrofit. We were going to make some adaptions to the buildings, like moving furniture, like doing things, and we were not going to have to sprinkler our buildings. That was my understanding. But when we come into these meetings and then we hear that we have to sprinkler, that's just mind-boggling to us, because I thought we were past that.
Again, what I mentioned a couple times, right, including the end of we tried talking about last meeting, is I'm just putting out there that more and more codes are now changing, going this way. As you see in we're talking about a life safety code now. Before, the IFC had it in the appendix. The latest version of the IFC, which is 2021's version, they moved some of the stuff that's in, they had still the appendix, but they moved some of that to the body now. We're actually expecting with the 2024, we don't know what the language is going to be yet, because the committee just started meeting on it, or is in the middle of meeting on it, is that there will be even more move to it. The life safety code is going that way. The NFPA 1, which is the fire code for NFPA, has already full-bore moved that way. We would be expecting to see the sprinkler codes and even maybe the building code going that way in future years. So like I said, last month, I'm sorry, Steve, you weren't here to hear that part. But they did have a representative here. And one of the things I just want to point out that just keep in mind, nobody's in violation of anything right now. Nothing's requiring you to do anything right now. But as codes keep changing and they keep updating things, it seems that a lot of these codes are going that way with retrofitting. We don't know what the future holds. They may stop. I doubt it, but they may stop. I just bring this out to everybody's attention that keep it in the back of your minds. As you guys do, you can hire an engineer. Maybe you want to keep that on the back burner somewhere and looking that down the road, because my personal opinion is that I foresee this coming down the pike with more codes.
well, I guess, just getting back to Steve's original point, we just got to know where we stand.
Yeah, and
That's,
we'll
you
get
know,
back
that's,
with, we'll get
because
back
we
with
can't
the
do anything.
solicitor.
You know, we can go spend money on an engineer and say, well, they told us that the codes are changing and everything like that. But he says, well, what do you have to do? And I'd sit there like an idiot and say, I don't know, because nobody told me what I have to do.
Well, you'll bring back to them.
We'll go back to Mike, the solicitor.
Okay.
Mike Clark.
Okay.
And I mean, like, he brought these sections out and said there were alternatives. You know, he describes them here, I'm sure he's quoting that right out of the code book. But we'll come up with,
Okay.
maybe we can ask him to draft a letter to tell you exactly what you have to do.
We
Yeah,
appreciate
that would
it. There's a
be
lot of
very
people on
appreciated.
edge right now, because it means it's a make or break for a lot of people.
Sure, we
Right.
understand, we understand.
And it's now going on months and months to where people, we don't know what to do, we don't know what to spend money on, we don't know what's happening. So the sooner the better if we could see the township's position. And I know codes are changing on a regular basis, but
Yeah.
we got to make sure that the township, is clear with us on what they're going to adopt. And when they adopt something that's going to affect people's lives, that they have to share it with us. Because when we talk $20,000 to $30,000 per condo, could be devastating to certain people, and the value of the condo.
Of course it is.
So, I mean, there's a lot of people that are, on edge.
Sure.
So,
We know that. Yeah. Everybody came out and told us, so we do understand.
And you need and you deserve notice. So we will get our solicitor to give the legal interpretation.
And if council can
And provide
adopt
that
or not
notice.
adopt, they'll have to take that action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like we need two answers. One is the whole question of would an alternative plan have to have been in place already, right? It seems like that's question one for Mike, right? Because it sounds like
Sounds
Mike
like-
Clark.
Or started.
Right, or started. And I also wonder if that means if you have things in place, is that the same as having a plan on file? Like, hey,
That's a great question.
right. So there's really two branches to that question. One is, if something's already been in motion, and does that have to be a formalized plan, or can you say, oh, no, we've already done, like, we have 3 of these things on the list, like, we could have checked this, and this box. So that might be question one for Mike. And then question 2 is, what are the alternatives that are acceptable? Like, in what cooperative conversation does a fire engineer have, like, to know, like, these are the acceptable options, right? And I don't know if Mike Clark interprets that from here, or that's what a fire engineer does. He looks at those categories and says, okay, they've got these 3 things that seem to meet code. But, like, what are the alternatives? I think that's what everybody's asking.
Right.
What are the acceptable alternatives? And I know, like, council can't answer the question. Like, we're going to look to the code
Fire
to,
protection.
what does the code say are the acceptable alternatives?
Yeah, we're going to want fire and life safety engineers and solicitors to guide council.
Sure, of course, because that's not your expertise.
So
Yeah.
can I add one more thing on top of that?
Sure.
Can we have a financial impact study and an engineering study completed before we just require things? We got to see how it affects people's lives and what is the backup. Just because a code tells us to do something shouldn't be the reason we just go and do it. We should see how it impacts people's lives. And we just had this in Philadelphia, where they did similar legislation that they're trying to pass. And we actually hired our own engineer, a fire safety engineer, as well as an economist from eConsult Solution. I have both of those reports with me, and I'd love to share them with you. And that's real data. That's by professionals, not someone guessing at what the impact is to the community residents. But that's real data and facts about high-rise and mid-rise sprinkler retrofitting. It has all the data that's factual. It's not, it gives you how it impacts people's lives, how people can afford it, all the affordabilities of it, and it's very good information. And it's for Philadelphia, from this engineer and from this economist, who are well-known, but it's not for Plymouth Township. It doesn't take into the affordability of the condos and or the apartments, but a study should be done like that before any code is adopted or before anything is levied on us. I think that should, come into play here. It's an ask from Place One. I think it's an ask from you guys. We should see how it affects people's lives before we just do things. So.
I assume you're suggesting that the township would fund.
We could do
such
our
a
own
study,
study,
or-
but as far as backing it up, I mean, I'd be okay with you hiring anyone for this because the data doesn't lie. The data is what it is, and the safety record of our buildings doesn't lie. And I'd be happy to open my doors to anyone you wanted to hire to come do a study, because that's the right way to do this. Not just shove it down and say, this is what we got to do. That doesn't take people's lives into consideration.
I don't really think we could spend the taxpayers' money doing that for your buildings. You would have to do it, unfortunately. If you had design professionals doing it, we would take that all into consideration.
So the 337 taxpayers that own units or homes in our
That's
facility.
337 out of about 40,000 on board,
Okay, okay.
you know?
I think probably
council
that'd be council
question.
decision.
Yeah,
That'd be council's decision, I think.
I know I wouldn't want to spend it personally.
But just to
Well,
respond
before
to,
these
fair.
codes are adopted, they've been adopted many, many, many years ago, and all subsequent additions just are automatically included. So, you can say, you can't really say before we adopt a code. These codes have been in place for probably 40, 50 years.
We were back to what, 94, I think, on life safety?
Yeah.
We just gave up.
But it was prior to that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
94, I think, is when Plymouth adopted the sprinkler
the
ordinance.
sprinkler ordinance, that's
Yeah.
where we went back to.
And that was after the big fire downtown.
I don't disagree that I think we have an obligation to understand what the financial impact is of something that we are proposing or requiring. So I don't disagree that it's helpful for us to understand that. But also, just being candid, it worries me a little to think about, well, if the cost is X, we'll say you don't have to do it. Like, it seems dangerous to me for us to get into the game of, well, with that code we like, that code we don't. Let's take some of the codes. Like, none of us are experts in this area. Like, I would feel nervous about saying a governing body has required a code and council will propose ignoring such code. I'm just kind of putting that out there.
wouldn't.
That
One thing to maybe
mean-
also consider is if the decision is to go with some of this stuff, help with financial burden, budgeting, long-term and everything else. One thing you could possibly consider also from council is, yeah, they have dates on these codes now. Nothing says you can't adopt it and extend that date ourselves as far as the township goes. To say, give them 5 years beyond that or what have you. Because it's a huge burden to take.
right.
And to say have it done in 10 years, that's a tough thing to do. And try and budget out. But I think it would be in council's purview to even maybe
To
say,
push
okay,
it out.
tack another 5 years on or
Right.
do something with that too possibly.
Just looking from
Just
our
something.
perspective, the amount of
Just
money
about.
based on some of the studies that I have seen like that would cost us in excess of $12 million. I'm not sure the buildings are worth $12 million.
Did you check out the AFSA or NFSA, some of the organizations that I mentioned before?
No, I haven't.
I'll get you guys in
Okay.
with them.
But I'm talking about
They-
the engineers.
Well, they have engineers and they have stuff like that too. They're very informative for me when I reached out to them. They actually got a group of people to talk to
But I
us.
saw one number that was for a building of, like we have, $35 a square foot. I have a unit that's 1,365 square feet. That would cost me almost 50 grand to do that. And you've got people in there that are on Social Security and things like that. It would be a burden.
Oh, yeah.
Of I'm not sure how you do it. And then what happens to your property value when you do something like that? You know,
Yeah.
that's another thing that we have to look at.
And I think when we had the studies done, we get good factual numbers too.
Yeah, well,
From
that's.
what the current costs are for this area, what
We have.
supplies are.
We have.
Well,
That
I
is-
think some of those are inflated too, because some of the numbers I saw are not like that.
Not at all.
So-
This is from a professional.
You're
engineer.
professional.
NFSA had, NFSA had
Well, see,
had
that-
professionals
If you
too.
have your professional.
That's our whole-
you know,
No, this is from your professional, not the,
I just think reach out
Yeah.
because there's
That
some
you-
facts out there to say otherwise, but I think just make a good informed decision and
Well,
like I
that-
said, I'll get you some other people to talk to too, just to see.
That would be fine, but
Okay.
my point, you don't want to spend the money, but then you say to us, well, that's your guy, and if we give it to you. But we need something to bounce it off. We need some, it's almost like getting three prices when you want to do a job.
if it's a design
That's a good
professional,
point.
You know, you've got to have, there's three sides to every story, his, hers, and the right one. You know, that story. But we're not trying to come to you and say, well, here's our information, and you'll say, well, where'd you get that information? But if you have something similar to that, to bounce it off, and then we can talk about that. Then we can negotiate that.
well, what I'm saying is, if you have a design professional do it for your building, I'm tend to believe that because if he's signing, if he's a
Well, that's what we
design
have here.
professional, sign and
Seal
seal.
it, yeah.
But that's not for your
But they
building,
didn't
that's
do
for
that for
buildings
your
and
building
filling.
specifically.
No, but they would.
Yeah.
They hired them to do
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
hire
I
to
know.
do
Yeah,
your
that's
building,
You know what,
Philly study.
we can't go through this
Yeah.
again. We need to know the township's position on this. We love the township. I can speak for both buildings.
Yeah.
We're here. We've been part of this community for a really long time, and we want to keep being that. We want to be the good residents of the community. Tell us your position, we'll go from there. Every time I come to these meetings, we sit here and we debate sprinkler retrofitting, and yet no studies have been done, nothing's, it just seems like it's on a wheel, and we just keep going around. And this keeps coming up, and we keep scaring people. I wasn't at the last meeting, but it really scared people. So let's figure this out, and then let's go from there. Okay, we just keep
So I think we
talking
just
about it.
let council,
Yeah, so we'll go
Come
back.
up with it.
Well, we'll go back to the solicitor who says there are alternatives, and I don't know if you have, like any smoke detection systems or smoke control systems, like
We sure do.
Okay, so.
they have smoke detectors, yeah.
And or compartmentation, I guess like this,
Yeah, Design Fresh
Door-
has to go over those, what
doors.
those specifically
I
mean.
mean, so there are options, that's what, an alternatives here, is what this is saying.
We're good.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah,
need to know
we just
what.
need to know
Exactly.
what.
The
Exactly what
expectation
they
and
are.
read through there. We have a voice enunciation, fire alarm system.
So do
It-
we.
It's, you know, we have what we need to have
A
in the
lot of
building.
safety features already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we just need to know where we sit.
Okay. I'll get Mike to see if he can draft a letter to you guys to
That
explain
would be
exactly
great.
what you need.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Guess we move on.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Yeah, no, I have, next meeting is next, so, but we'll get Mike working on that.
Maybe we should have our next meeting as soon as we hear back from our solicitor, so that we can
Okay.
give specific
We'll do a
answers
doodle
to you.
poll or something like that for it.
That'd be great.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah. My only suggestion is, I'd say at least 2 months, let's not make it 3 or
Yeah.
4 or.
Okay.
Take a look.
I would
at
do it
them.
next month,
And see what's
personally,
done.
maybe towards the end of
Well, as
this
soon as we
month.
get. some
Yeah,
information.
If we get some of the
Are
solicitor.
these extra copies?
Yeah, you guys can have it. I didn't print one for everybody, I apologize. So,
Ready, Karen, I'm going to slide to you.
Yep.
your council might want to take a look at them.
Yeah.
Steve Finkelman's probably one of the, he has the most experience in all of Philadelphia as far as an engineer, and he's got an extensive resume.
Yes, okay,
Okay.
all right.
Now, these look
So
like
doodle poll after talking with the solicitor?
Yes,
Or
after he
getting
gets
decision?
something back from Mike. Draft, and so he says there's options and
I'm not going to read
alternatives,
this
so.
right
Mhm.
now, right? I get both to
Yeah,
Karen.
that's that life safety,
Yeah, if she
engineer life
needs-
safety
maybe-
system.
maybe-
Maybe you can make copies for council and
Yeah.
Mike and
Yeah, is that the
react to
same?
these.
Yeah. So one less set of copies required.
Yeah,
Unless.
And make sure we get a
I was
copy
gonna say,
too, please.
Yeah, well, obviously,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say, if you wanted to take one.
yeah. Are these the same?
I
Yeah,
think they are.
they're the same,
Two
and they were
copies
shared
the
with.
same.
There's one of each, yeah. Oh, they're the same packets, I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
You gave
There are two things in there.
Yeah.
Both
Discussion of
studies
the
are in
fire
here.
code. and
I'll send them to you
sprinklers.
electronically as well.
Okay, great.
Oh,
It
great.
really gives good data on the safety of our buildings
Of the
and their
buildings.
construction
Yeah.
and real facts.
So
For
if you
your
get
buildings.
electronically, you can
Just
share.
This is
Okay.
for all of Philadelphia.
Oh,
These
okay,
were- these
but,
were
The
the-
entire.
but not your buildings, okay. That's just asking,
But
that's all.
every high-rise, mid-rise in Philadelphia, every one,
Okay.
is taken into consideration. Same construction that we have here.
And if you get it electronically, maybe you can share it with us electronically.
Of course,
Yeah.
that's easier.
I'll save it, Tree.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
We done?
Yes, I think we were good.
Okay.
No,
I
next
I don't think we
meeting.
should schedule another meeting until we
Until-
until we
That's
have
what we were talking
council and we
about.
know the
Yeah,
position.
Let's hear
we'll
from
do
the
a doodle
solicitor.
poll when we hear from the solicitor.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
would be
That
great.
would be perfect.
Yes.
And
All right,
and
thank
when we
you.
do, hopefully within the month after that.
Yeah, yeah. We'll just set up a, does the doodle poll work well for people?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fine with me. I like that.
Yeah?
I like those.
Yeah, it's convenient. Okay, great. All right, well, no other business?
Any
We're
older
adjourned.
news?
Appreciate it.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right,
Formally adjourned.
thank you.
Motion to
You make
adjourn.
motion?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
So we have a motion, we have a second.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.